Donald Trump ramps up his attacks on judges. The Republican-led House of Representatives is doing what it can to undermine the legitimacy of the judicial branch and its ability to provide any sort of legal check on Trump's efforts to expand his power. The House yesterday passed what it calls the No Rogue Rulings Act, which aims to limit district court judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions. Just one Republican, Congressman Mike Turner, joined all Democrats to vote against the bill. It faces slim chances of passage in the Senate and then becoming law, but Trump allies in Congress argue that their efforts to try to strip federal judges of their power are necessary due to the increase in nationwide injunctions hitting pause on Trump's executive actions. But here's what Congressman Dan Goldman had to say to pop that non-reality.
Colleagues complain about the high number of nationwide injunctions during the first 3 months of this presidency. Well, rather than blame the judges for that, I've got an idea. Stop breaking the law.
There's that. Joining our coverage, former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill is here. Andrew's still with us. Claire, your thoughts on everything that's unfolded today, but especially this move by House Republicans who really are operating more like the White House staffers in the Ledge Affairs office.
Yeah, they have absolutely no backbone when it comes to oversight of the executive branch. By the way, if they read the Constitution, they would understand that's their job. But they have abdicated that job. They are sleeping dogs with no fight in them unless Donald Trump prods them to do something on his behalf. And I think what's really destructive about this law is that a lot of Americans don't understand really how our courts work. And I hate to do this in front of Andrew because he's probably been in the courtroom maybe even more than I have, and I've been there a lot. But our trial courts are the finders of fact, Nicole. The district courts in the federal level is where you bring evidence in, and a judge decides what evidence is admissible, and either a jury or a judge makes decisions about whether or not witnesses are believable and what law should be applied to those facts. And that is what the trial court does. And you get a remedy at the trial court. The decision is whether you're innocent or guilty, or whether you receive damages or not, or whether you get an injunction to stop activity that the court determines based on the evidence in the law is not allowed. Now, what these guys are saying is we're going to wipe out that level. We're going to immediately take it to the appellate level. Well, how are they going to be the finders of fact? They don't hear evidence. They're not on the front row to hear the witnesses and understand the testimony. So what they're really doing is saying, listen, judges, we're trying to tell you to quit ruling against a president that's acting unlawfully. That's really what they're doing. And shame on them, because their job is they're supposed to be checking the president and the executive branch, not trying to undermine the ability of the only branch left that is willing to try to extract some kind of accountability from this guy.
Well, what's amazing, Claire, is the hypocrisy. I mean, Republicans publicly and privately will tout the great accomplishment of largely remaking the ranks of the federal judiciary. A lot of the judges who over the last 9 years have pumped the brakes on Trump's policies are people who were appointed by Republican presidents, in some cases Trump himself. What is the impact, and both the security impact and the political impact, of just chipping away at the integrity and the credibility of federal judges?
Well, I mean, in fairness, the Supreme Court has done a fairly good job of that on its own in terms of chipping away at some of the confidence people have in the Supreme Court with some of the shenanigans of Clarence Thomas and others. But it really does. It is interesting to me because courts have always issued injunctions against presidential action. They did it, I think, dozens of times to Barack Obama. They certainly did it a lot to Joe Biden. Republicans that have been people who've been appointed by Republican presidents and Democratic presidents have both done it. I think the AP case, which basically stood up for the freedom of press in this country, I believe that case was decided by a Trump judge who said, no, Donald Trump, you can't tell the AP they're not allowed in the White House. That isn't how America works. So they need to just realize that if they're not willing to do their job for checks and balances that our founding fathers envisioned, they need to at least let the courts do it.